Cool.
I got my iced tea.
Oh yeah.
I'm ready.
We're ready. Hey, hi everyone. We'll get started in a couple minutes. If anyone's brave enough to show their face, it's always appreciated. I know I'll speak for Alexandra as the presenter. That's always nice when you could see more people in the audience.
Yeah.
Hello,
But if you're driving, please do not. But otherwise, Dan, I have a feeling you'd step up.
Hey, Cliff. Hey, Cliff.
I just saw Mark, MSP, last night.
Oh, nice.
Friday, 6:30.
And let me.
Is he gonna join this?
I don't think so. We didn't talk about this, but
His boss.
he's missing out.
I'll text him. Yeah.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see everybody. Hi.
Thanks for being the brave soul. Anyone else that might be a brave soul to turn their camera on?
It's okay either way. I won't be offended.
I usually ask 2 or 3 times, and then that's when I know to stop.
Yeah.
Oh, Lily.
Hello, Cliff.
Hi.
Hi, Alexandra.
Hey, Cliff.
Oh, hey, Bryant.
He's cooking dinner, but he'll chime in.
Okay. Cool. I was so excited to see you register for this. I felt like this one would be up your alley, Lily, because I know you really like the design aspect of real estate too.
Yeah, I'm so interested. And actually, my brother-in-law, David Zhao, is on here too. He's also very interested in the process of buying a home, rehabbing it, and putting it back on the market. We actually submitted his first offer on a home. It got rejected, but we got the process started. And so it's certainly an avenue that our family as a whole is interested in investigating and learning more about.
Yeah.
So excited that you are hosting this. Thank you so much for putting it together.
Oh yeah. Thanks for joining. Yeah, we'll get started. We'll say 1 minute. We'll give people 1 more minute to join. Hi, Sam. Thanks for tuning in.
Hello. I'm so excited about this.
I can feel everybody's energy. I'm getting really excited.
Alexandra, if we do have time, I think it'd be really cool too. Maybe at the end you could, or wherever you want, you could share. You had talked about like kind of like long-term goals of where you wanted to take Bay Steel Design, and I just thought that was so inspiring. Of like what you said about all the homes in El Cerrito, specifically just in that city, and converting them, renovating them, and really kind of taking them not even to their past glory, but just like it was just such a specific focus that I was like, oh, that is so cool.
Yeah, I'll touch on that. And if I don't, remind me. I have a lot of information to cover. So I want to keep this very high level. We could get into the weeds and I could talk about this for 3 days, but I know I want to be very respectful of everybody's time. So I don't want to, but I will cover that. I'll touch on it a little bit.
Okay, cool. Yeah, maybe we can just get started. I'll kick things off and kind of give some intros. So thank you all for joining. I think I know most of the people here. If not, my name is Cliff. How do I introduce myself? A lot of these people are friends too. So I'm a real estate agent here in the Bay Area. And Alexandra, who is our guest speaker today, she's the owner of a company called Steel Bay Design. Sorry, I was saying that wrong twice. Steel Bay Designs. And it's a design company that also does rehab renovations here in the Bay Area. And funny enough, she was a guest attendee a few weeks ago for one of these sessions that we hosted, and she reached out, and I just thought it was such a good fit to bring her on as a follow-up, because a few weeks ago Connie talked about renovations, and that was kind of a big hit. People really enjoyed that conversation, but I think also people were hoping to hear more from a local expert here in the Bay Area, and so excited to have Alexandra on. For her to share her story, her background, and also some of the cool projects that she's working on and has worked on in the past. So welcome, Alexandra.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining. I'll be very Bay Area focused just because that's my market. But these tips and tricks could be kind of applicable everywhere. So hopefully everybody learns something. I'm really excited to share kind of this journey, and I'm gonna towards the middle of the presentation, I'm gonna take a deep dive into a case study that I just completed. So you kind of can get a sense in real time how these projects work. So, okay, so this is the agenda. So you want to flip a house. These are some of the projects that I've done. I'm going to talk about Steel Bay Designs and what I do in my business. I'm going to talk about stacking your team. I'm going to talk about targeting a good investment, tips to get you started, the case study with some details, and then my contact info, and then we'll kind of roll into some Q&A. And Cliff is going to keep me on track with time because, like I said, I could ramble on all day. And this is supposed to be very informal. So if you have questions, please feel free to jump in. This is a conversation. Not a dictatorship. So if you have questions or something strikes a nerve, or you want to share a story, please feel free to do that. Okay. So this is me again. So I'm Alexandra. I've been in the construction and interior design business for about 15 years. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Hence the steel part of my Steel Bay. It's kind of a nod to Pittsburgh meets the Bay Area. And the theme in both of those places is bridges. So my slogan is bridging the gap between what is and what could be. A little nod to my past. So my degree is in architectural preservation, and I have a degree in studio arts. I got my master's in interior architecture. I've been in the construction industry, like I said, for about 15 years. I started doing fix and flips in 2013 was when I got my first property. I started doing virtual remodeling before virtual remodeling was even a thing, and that was using visual imagery to kind of convey the message about what the design could be. A lot of contractors use this as a tool for pre-sale. So I'll show you a little bit of that a little bit more. Like I said, I started investing in 2013. My husband and I actually were buying properties, moving into them for 2 years for the capital gains, and then we would sell them. So we've been doing that for the last 10 years. We still have boxes in the garage that have not been unpacked. So it's not for the faint of heart, for sure. My specialty is return on investment. So I design with return on investment in mind. So my typical clients are people who are buying a home, they want to live in it for 3 to 5 years, or contractors or investors who come to me, hire me to kind of guide them on the process of design, what buyers are interested in, what buyers are looking for, identifying a buyer profile. Those are some of the things that I help kind of my investors hone in on. And my favorite drink is a green tea from Starbucks, which I have right now. Just so you guys all know. So that's a little bit about me. So let's move into the stacking your team. So having a diverse network of professionals on your team that you can really trust and rely on really, really does make the difference between a successful project and a flip-flop. So what that means is do this now. Like, that's my pro tip, is do this now. Stack your team with real estate professionals, title companies, insurance providers, make relationships with general contractors. Appraisers are great for that second opinion. When you get a loan, sometimes you have to have an appraisal depending on the type of loan that it is. And if your house doesn't appraise at the price that you're paying for it, sometimes it's good to have a second opinion. Designers, engineers, architects, inspectors, people who all work in this space are really important. They understand that time is of the essence, and time is money. So this is some of the stuff, even before you find your investment, these are some of the things that I would really encourage that people start doing now. Creating those relationships with these people you can rely on when the time comes, and it's when the time comes, it's the worst time to start making relationships because you need to move very, very fast. So targeting a good investment, knowledge is power. Do your due diligence. This is so important. You can rely on your real estate agent to help you with your to create relationships, but they can help you with your comparable sales. They can send you listings. Like, this is have a real estate agent in your back pocket. Let them know that you're interested. They can help you create a CMA, which is a comparative marketing analysis. This is for this presentation exercise, I put together my own, but you can do this too. This is not a plug for Redfin, but I love Redfin because you can, in the target market that you want to hone in on, you can do this solds for the last 6 months. So you can see what things are selling for. You can see how long things are on the market. In the Bay Area specifically, it's not uncommon for something to be on the market for 2 weeks and then to go under contract. So those are the kinds of things that you should be looking at, especially in the areas where you want to invest. So you can make adjustments for things like bedroom and bathroom count, square footage. Views is a really big thing in the Bay Area. You know, you want to make adjustments for that kind of stuff. Again, relying on your real estate professionals for those kinds of things. Cost per square is a great ballpark to start for how much things are selling for, but it's not always accurate. And typically the smaller the home in the Bay Area, the higher the price per square. Right, Cliff? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so typically, as when you buy fixers, they are sold as is, meaning that they're going to be marketed as is. The sellers are not going to do anything to this property to get it ready to be sold. So sometimes they're cash deals only, meaning that they can't be financed. Those are really good options because it kind of rules out a huge mass population of people who are making bids. But if you choose to investigate on your own, you could do a home inspection or a pest inspection, and they'll bring up this, if ever, any of you have ever bought a home and you've gone and got a home inspection, they come up with this list of deficiencies that says, these are all the things that you need to address. Pest reports are a big thing out here too, knowing how much you're gonna have to spend in pest. So considering what you're gonna have to clear is part of this due diligence also. If it's $200,000 in termite damage, then that might not be worth it on, I don't know, it may not be worth it on the other side. So speak to your real estate agent about the pluses and minuses of waiving your contingencies, because if you waive all your contingencies, whatever comes up in your home and in pest, it's kind of for your information only. And I'm not gonna dive too deep in that, but it's something to consider and weigh the pros and the cons of contingencies, if that makes sense.
Alexandra, a quick question. Can you help us kind of connect the dots a little bit? I think what you shared was so important about looking at comps and looking at CMA and all that. Can you share, like, in your point of, like, how are the comps helpful then? And how do you then determine, like, okay, I see this fixer.
Yeah.
How do the comps help you then with your fixer? Because the fixer is not part of the comps. Like, how does connect how those two are related?
Okay, so in my comp analysis, I do two types of comps. I do the comps that say how much the property is actually worth in its current state. So the price per square, the condition, I balance that against properties that are selling in the area. So I say, you know, that's part of the spreadsheet. So I say the as is value is X. And I have my real estate professional help you with that. Then the ARV is the after renovation value. So you pull all the comps for that. So I would pull probably 10 to 12, and we'll get into this in another slide, but I would pull about 10 to 12 comps that say that typically things are selling in the $800 to $1,200 range based off of the square footage, the views, and all of the price per square and all that stuff that I discussed previously. But if the after renovation value is like, this is my target price, this is what I can anticipate spending, this is where the exit kind of has to be in and around that range. Now, there are always outliers. In the Bay Area, there's that I have to have it price, which is what I call it, which is the outlier that says it doesn't matter what this house costs, I'm gonna pay it. Because people out here, they have money. If they want something, they don't care what they pay for it in most cases. But again, we'll cover it in another slide, but don't use the outliers. The outliers are going to skew your entire system. They're great to know that there are outliers in the area, but it could be something like that this place has enormous panoramic views, and that's why someone was willing to pay. If yours doesn't have enormous panoramic views, then it's not quite going to be apples to apples.
Gotcha.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that does. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so this is targeting a good investment. So investments are only as good as the numbers, and this is about underwriting. I will blow up this little case study down below so we can kind of take a dive into it. But it's the cost of purchase. Identify your range, like we talked about in the previous slide. Have your real estate agent help you with this. Holding costs are taxes, insurance, water, and utilities, all the costs that you're going to need to hold the property. Again, with staffing your team, having someone with a title help you with this. A timeline will help you determine your holding costs. So if the project is going to take you between 4, 6, 12 months, you have to be budgeting accordingly to how long you're going to be holding, how long you anticipate the project is going to take. So the cost of repair is the estimated project cost. That's hard and soft costs. Your contractor on your team can help you kind of determine how much the project is going to cost. The cost of sale is your transfer taxes, your inspections, your commissions, all the stuff that comes along with the cost of sale. So have your real estate agent and your title company help with that. And then the cost of money is if you're borrowing money, this hard money, it's points, interest. Is there a prepayment penalty? Depends on who you're borrowing money from. Typically, no, but you have to, it depends on, again, who you're borrowing money from. And can you extend the loan? Typically a loan period for hard money, which there's another video from Conventus about hard money that Cliff has, so refer to that one. But you typically a hard money loan is 12 months. And do they allow you to extend the hard money loan if your project goes past a year? So those are the kind of questions to ask. So have your loan officer help with that. Those are some really important questions, because that'll help you gauge whether, again, how much money you're putting out, is it going to be worth it in the long run? So let's see what this looks like. So this is kind of a blown up version of it. So this is a made up scenario.
Oh, we're not seeing anything, Alexandra. Did you go to another spreadsheet?
Yes. Did it not pop up? No. This is, so you can see this presentation.
Yeah, we see the
But
presentation.
you can't see this. Oh, weird.
It might be, you might be just sharing that once the presentation screen.
Okay. Let's see. I'm not sure how to do that. So you can't see this at all?
No. Can you drag that that spreadsheet into whatever windows where the presentation is? Is this a different monitor?
It should just go into that window automatically because it's the same screen.
You might need to stop sharing and reshare like your entire screen.
Okay, let's try that.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you. Let's see. Okay, let's try again. Okay, how about now? Fingers crossed?
Yeah.
Okay, yay, okay. This is an important one. I wanted you guys to all see this. So this is made up. This is not based on a project. I did not profit $241,000. These are all made up numbers, but I wanted to show you all how this works. The cost of purchase is purchase price, escrow. This is on the buy side. Purchase price, escrow fees, transfer taxes. So that moves over into the bucket. Holding costs, that's your taxes, insurance, water, utilities, all that stuff over the course of the entire project. So if you're anticipating 12 months, it's every month for that amount of time. The COR, the cost of repair, is all your hard and your soft costs. That's the finishes, the permitting, the engineering, the architectural, the project management, the drawings, the sewer lateral. If you're not, this is again Bay Area specific. If the sewer lateral was not completed, you'll know that typically during the course of the buy, you'll have to take care of that. The construction costs. So that moves up into the bucket. The cost of sale is deep cleaning after your project, staging, photography, your property website, advertising. If you want to do Matterport, if you want to do videography, if you're going to do pre-sale home inspections and pest inspections, if you're going to take care of that and not put it off on your buyer, then that's something that you'll put it into your bucket. Then you have the county transfer tax, the city transfer tax, which are not always, the seller doesn't always have that. There's escrow fees on all your closing costs, and then commissions. So that goes into the COS bucket, the cost of sale. And then you have the cost of money, which is the points and the interest and all the good stuff that comes along with borrowing money. So when all of that stuff goes into your bucket, your project spend total, this amount right here says, after all of those things are identified, I will not make money, or I will break even at this price. And that is like your bottom line. I always say you want to have buffer to that, because if anything goes wrong, which it does, because expect the unexpected in construction, then you need to have a contingency plan. So project what your after renovation, your ARV, your value is. So if you think that your project, this I want to go on at 2.1, and you have all of your data to back this up, your comps, then theoretically your bottom line and your ARV, this is the profit that you should make. That makes sense. That's a lot of information. Some of these boxes can be checked by other people giving you information, like photography, property websites, Matterport, videography. You can kind of tick all those boxes with numbers that people give you. And always get 3 bids. That's what I say in construction. Always get 3 bids, because there's usually a really, really, really low number, a middle number, and a high number, and you can kind of average them out. But you want to make sure not all estimates are going to be created equal. So you want to make sure that you're doing apples to apples. Okay, let me see if this will go back to the other slide, or if I have to stop again. Did that go back?
We're good.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, hallelujah. Okay, so that's basically how we started an investment in a nutshell. Okay, so here's where to get started. I mean, this seems very, very, very overwhelming, and believe me, I was there, so I totally understand. But when you break it up into smaller pieces, it's more digestible. So stacking your team, considering where you want to invest, in or out of state. Maybe investing in the city or the state that you live in isn't advantageous for you. Maybe you don't want to. Maybe you have investments that you want to do elsewhere. Finding financing, hard money, or equity partners. So maybe you and your friends all get together and you pull cash to do a project together. Maybe you do hard money. You want to put the word out there that you're looking for opportunities. Again, networking. Any real estate agent that you know, let them know these are the areas that you're looking in. Set a budget and a scope of work, the SOW you feel comfortable working in. If the scope of work is jacking up a house and putting another floor underneath it, I don't even know that I would feel comfortable yet in my career doing something like that. So make sure that you're targeting projects that you actually feel comfortable working in. And that may not be that you're tearing down a house down to one wall and building it back up again. So keep that in mind also. And then tune into Cliff's webinars. I mean, I have spent an entire day watching Cliff's webinars, and I have learned a ton about real estate investing. So make sure you go back and watch his YouTube videos that are all up and ready to go. Okay, so lovely. So coming up with a plan. So once you've identified a property and have done all your due diligence, you got to take a deep dive into the following. So your project budget, refine it. Refine all the hard costs and the soft costs. Identify the places you want to spend the money that will yield the highest return on investment. Mostly kitchens and bathrooms. This is a project that I did. In most cases, every single room will need to be touched, but you'll know that, and we'll get into budgets in another slide, but you'll know that the most money goes into kitchens and bathrooms pretty much all the time. And labor. Labor is very expensive. So know the difference between hard costs and soft costs. Hard costs include like expenses such as labor, materials, and soft costs are variable costs that include expenses like architecture, design fees, legal fees, taxes, maintenance, repair costs. So those are the difference. When I do my analysis, I split it into buckets so it doesn't get confusing about where the money is going to be coming from. Feasibility and timeline, I like to work backwards personally. Identify when the property must go on market before you start losing money. And is that feasible, honestly? If so, in the case study, I purchased this property in June. I said, if we do not go back on by mid-October, we have missed our selling window here in the Bay Area. Once you head into Thanksgiving and the holidays, things start drastically slowing down. So when you're considering your timeline, work backwards and say, if I want to get this property back on the market by October 25th, what does that look like? So you start kind of reverse engineering it. And then is it saleable at that time of year? And do you have the trades and the resources available to complete the work on time? That sentence right there is the reason why I know so many people who won't invest, because they don't have the trades and the resources that are ready to mobilize right away. And the contractors are notorious for this. They tell you, yeah, we'll take on that project, no problem. But then you don't hear from them for 3 or 4 months. And then your whole time frame goes out the window. So again, with the relationships, super important. And then your strategy. What if the timeline slips? Is there any wiggle room in your pricing strategy? So if your project is delayed 2, 3, 4 months, are your margins so narrow that you're not going to make any money, or you're going to go actually negative? You don't want that. And then what your exit, this is really important. What is your exit strategy if the property doesn't sell? And every single hard money application I've ever applied for, this is one of the questions. What are you willing to do if your property doesn't sell? And those are some hard questions to ask yourself. Like, oh my God, this is a real thing. What if the property doesn't sell? So again, we'll cover that in another slide.
Alexandra, quick question for you.
Yes.
Do you have any general guidance? Like our clients usually, if they ask how much does a bathroom remodel cost? How much does a kitchen remodel cost? I know there are a ton of variables. Are you moving plumbing? What type of materials and all that? Generally, we've said about 50,000 for a bathroom, nice remodel, and about 100,000 for a kitchen remodel.
Yeah.
If you found that to be generally true?
It really depends on the level of finishes, honestly. That's really hard. I usually like to give people ballpark ranges because depending on what if you're using solid wood cabinetry, if you're going custom or prefabricated, there are all kinds of variables that make something more or less expensive. Depending on the level of appliances you're using, it could be a $20,000 package. It could be a $50,000 package on appliances alone. So, and it also depends on your price per square. So the bigger the kitchen, the more expensive it's going to be. The smaller the kitchen, you could probably get away with a kitchen that's 50. But typically the range, knowing all of those variables, typically the range I would say for a kitchen is between 50, 100 is on the really high side. Typically flips, you don't see hundreds in the kitchens in the hundreds. For end users, people who intend to live into their properties, you can see people spending that kind of money because they want to make the investment into their own space, if that makes sense. For bathrooms, again, it depends on the size. A primary bathroom is going to be much more expensive. Also, depending on all the fixtures, is it a tub and a shower? Is it two separate, components? Again, you can do a bidet toilet that's, $2,000. You could do a regular standard toilet that you can get for $250. It's like, so it really depends on the range, but typically, it's between 25 and probably 50,000. I mean, but honestly, the materials aren't the expensive part, it's the labor. So, some developers opt to do quartz panels if you see them in the showers rather than tile, because the tile itself, subway tile is 69 cents a piece. That's literally cheap. That's nothing. But the installation could cost you $4,000. So those are, price balancing. Is there a higher return on investment to do tile? Absolutely, if we're talking primary bathroom. Absolutely. You don't want it's the look and feel, and someone needs to fall in love with the space. I wouldn't do quartz panels. And a secondary bathroom, you could probably get away with doing quartz panels, but there are some caveats there. And again, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but you can mostly get away with that kind of stuff. But as materials are starting to get more expensive, you also have to weigh, are quartz panels actually cheaper than tile, and do your price comparisons. And your contractor can help you with that. Get your 3 quotes from your tile person too.
Thank you. That answer was so awesome because it was I think very easily or very nicely explained the complexity of like how many variables there are out there, and also just how much deep knowledge and expertise you have in that. So
yes, I've you win some, you lose some, and when you start balancing numbers, you start seeing maybe it's not worth the investment, or B, I have to have this, so I don't care. I kind of don't care what it's going to cost because it's going to be the impact. So that's something else. Again, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but you want someone to fall in love with your space. And sometimes people are willing to pay that extra money because they just want it. So when you're talking about custom tile versus quartz panels, for this example, maybe someone's willing to spend the extra money because they get the wow factor. So just something to think about. Okay, so part 2 of coming up with a plan is this is how I was able to finish my project in 4 months, start to finish. I made the most of my time in escrow. Okay, so when your offer is accepted, you go into escrow. Cash deal escrows are typically very short. I mean, that's one of the perks of getting cash deals, is because you can turn them around very quickly. But sometimes you could advocate to having your escrow be a little bit longer because your time clock isn't starting. So utilize your time in escrow very wisely. And that will help you get ahead of schedule and break up your list of things to do into priority items. So introduce yourself to your neighbors. I know this may not seem like an important thing to do, but it is so important to introduce yourself to your neighbors. If your contractor's trucks are blocking their driveway, I always give them my business card and say, hey, before you call the police, please call me first and I'll have them move, which happens all the time because when you have contractors stacked, everybody shows up in their own truck and then they block everybody's driveway or they double park. Super important to introduce yourself to your neighbors. It also keeps good camaraderie. Permitting, to permit or not to permit, is it worth getting red tagged? What that means in the Bay Area, getting red tagged means that somebody has started a project without pulling permits and they have gotten told on, or the inspector has been circling and they saw that you're doing work without permits. If you get red tagged, your project will be on hold indefinitely because the permit people you're at their mercy. And if you are doing things under the radar and they find out, they will move you to the very bottom of the list and they will not make you a priority. That has happened to me on another project. So if you want to go forward with no permits, I would say do it very cautiously. But I don't ever encourage not to do a project with permits because on the other side, that gives your buyer peace of mind that you did everything right. And that actually has a value in itself. So, with all that said, just consider your options. The planning and the layout is super important. One thing that I think that goes highly underrated is having your real estate agent help you identify the buyer profile. Who is this that you're building for? Is it somebody with kids? Are you in a really good school district? Is it an elementary school? Is it a middle school? Is it empty nesters that are typically buying in this area? And why that's important is I oftentimes go and see houses that are flips. And my impression is that this is a very family-friendly oriented neighborhood. Why are they putting showers in all of the bathrooms and getting rid of all the tubs? Like somebody is going to need to have a tub. So consider who your buyer is. Have your real estate agent help you with that. Targeting that will also help, like if it's a millennial family and they're really techie and they like that open concept kitchen, that's going to be really important to attract the right people. So consider that, and they're willing to pay the money. So the design, again, going back to like the finishes, fixtures, and equipment. So what does that look like? And then ordering your materials. So in COVID land, the lead times of materials got crazy town. Like we went from being able to have windows basically in 3 days to 6 to 8 months. And if you're part of your scope is that you're going to be replacing windows and the company that you are going to be buying them through says that the windows are an 8-month lead time. I mean, there's your timeline right there. Like if you think your project's going to be done in 4 months and you're still waiting on windows, that's not going to happen. So knowing that ahead of time is super important. So for my project, I ordered the windows while we were in escrow, which was really risky. I knew that I was going to lose my deposit if the deal fell through, but I felt fairly confident. So I ordered my windows while I was in escrow, and that kind of started my clock on my window order. And my windows arrived in, I think it was 4 weeks. So I had already started the clock on that. Appliances are not as difficult as they were once upon a time, but lead times on appliances are typically pretty long. So getting that all set up also. And then scheduling your official start date with your contractor and getting all the trades locked in, ready to mobilize as soon as you get those keys. I mean, you want the demo crew in there right away. You want to build a timeline with order of operations so the trades know when they're going to be scheduled. So not everybody shows up at once, like your painter isn't on site with your demo crew. So that you can have, obviously a project manager can help you kind of figure that out. So, so know your schedule. And then again, working backwards is really helpful for that. And then identify your hard stop completion date. This date should be at least 2 weeks prior to going on market. And so that you have time to do all the pre-listing activities like inspections and cleaning and staging and photography. So 2 weeks. So you're not building your construction timeline up until the day you want to go on. Don't do that. So 2 weeks at the very minimum. to make sure that you're kind of buttoning everything up and that your contractor is aware that this is your hard stop date. Actually, don't tell your contractor your hard stop date. Tell them even a week before that. So you have some fluff, so you have some wiggle room, but don't tell them I said that. Okay. Okay, so this is my case study. This is a project that I bought. This is my 4-month project. This is my cost of purchase was 1.181, 290, and that includes all my closing costs. I was in contract 6/9/2022. I closed escrow 6/22/2022. My cost of renovation, what I had budgeted was 350,000. My hard stop completion date was 10/1, but I did not tell my contractor that. My estimated list date was 10/11/2022. My holding costs, cost of money, and my cost of the sale. Break even, no profits, 1.6 and some change. My target sales price after all of the stuff that we did is between 168 and 1.7. So I had a healthy margin there. I was like, I'm good if we go a month over, not great, but I still have some buff. So those are the numbers. And then these are some of the pictures of the before. Okay. So I'm an interior designer. So I went through a whole identifier materials exercise. I did a rendering showing the contractors, this is the vision for the space. This is what I want it to look like when it's done for the kitchen specifically, because there are a lot of things that we're going to end up needing to be custom built. So I was like, this is the kind of the vision I want to go. My exterior palette, my countertops, my cabinets, my sink, my wallpaper, all of it had already been selected and purchased during the escrow period. So this stuff was already on order. So being able to kind of convey the vision helped him say, oh, I get it. Okay, so the ovens go over there. We're going to do this custom wine rack. Okay, cool, I got it. So that was really helpful because without visuals, sometimes people aren't visual people, so they need references. So that's kind of the mood, it's setting the tone. And then I had my electrician. I said, these are all the lights. These are the locations. This is the look that I'm going for. It's very mid-century. So just so you know where, and then I actually was really anal about it. I went and marked all the boxes as they arrived and said, this is the dining room light, the dining room. And then, I did little Post-its on everything. So I got super, I got super detail oriented about it because again, time is money. So I wanted to make sure that things were going where they're, because if they get installed in the wrong spot and then it has to be uninstalled and moved, that costs time, so that's, again, identify your materials. Now, not everybody does this. This is just something that I did for peace of mind because I wasn't on site every single day. But so I had these references for them so they can kind of look and say, okay, that's the dining room light. That's what I'm looking for, etc. So. Again, these are some of the renderings that I did just to kind of explain what the vision was for what the direction that I was going. These aren't set in stone by any means. It was just kind of the idea that I had in my head. And then this is my breakdown of my budget. So I was on site pretty much every day. I was running 2 jobs, so I was trying to be on site every day, but that's why I had a project manager to kind of make sure things were being pushed forward. So this was my breakdown. I had my demo and how the 350 was going to be allocated. I had my demo, my hauling, my cleaning. I had my kitchen. Now that is labor only. That cost 45,000 is labor only. In my FF&E budget was the cabinets and everything. So you see the cost of labor. The bathrooms is labor only. I converted the studio into an official ADU, which is why it was an accessory dwelling unit. Which is why pulling permits was really important because for me, I wanted to have that on the state record that it actually was an ADU, officially ADU conversion, so that I could sell it that way. The cost of flooring, again, labor only. My custom projects was custom cabinetry and doing custom things. I moved the laundry room from the upstairs to the downstairs, so we had to build custom space for that. My painting, interior and exterior, labor only, not the cost of supplies, landscaping, my FF&E budget, the roof and the gutters and the windows all needed to be replaced. So that's cost, labor and materials. And then my inspections, my engineers, my permitting, and then my project management. So that is how all that money was broken down. And now there's little things in between the cracks, but that's how it kind of got broken out.
That's impressive that you're pretty spot on.
I tried.
Well, yeah, one of my takeaways has just been how detailed you are with all of the planning and everything, and it kind of shows, like even that little tip of you put the light fixtures close to where they need to be installed, because that's time is money. Then they know to
Yeah,
just pop open
exactly.
the box and
Well,
that's
when
smart.
you're paying someone $50 an hour to sift through boxes in the garage, it kind of hurts. So making sure that you're really organized and all the lights are where they're supposed to be. You're not paying someone $50 an hour to look for things, which it kills me. It literally kills me. So making sure that you're, and we'll get into this in another slide, but if you, I'll keep going and then we'll get into it, but you'll see in the lessons learned section. Okay, so voila, here we go. This is the house. Yay. So 4 months of, doing this, that's not a magic wand. This is what we came up with. So as you can see, the kitchen's pretty darn close to the rendering, which doesn't always happen, but I was impressed. This is like with the painting and the windows and the lights and the landscaping. This is how it all came together, and there'll be more pictures in another slide. So that's the project. Well, this is actually, I'm sad to say, it's a cautionary tale, because this happened. Cliff, what happened?
Yeah, the market shifted at the end of last year. So call it May 2022 to end December, actually till February 2023. The market kind of just was downward in terms of pricing.
Yeah. So what did that mean? This is my cautionary tale because I broke even on this project, I'm sorry to say, because we held the project for 3 months longer than I had anticipated, which means 3 months of more carrying costs. And I got into the holiday season because I was not anticipating carrying it for 3 extra months. So Thanksgiving passed and Christmas passed and the buyers started disappearing and I was like losing sleep. And then eventually we did sell. We closed in January, but my 1.8, my 168, my 17 eval, we closed at 163. And so, those things we see on TV about all the fixes and, you're going to win big and all that, that's not always the way it happens. Sometimes you plan everything out and you cannot control the market. And that's just the way that it is. So I said to Cliff, I'm a little bit embarrassed to share this story. And he said it's a win because, the market shifted so drastically. Imagine if I wouldn't have done everything that I did, then it could have been way worse. And I agree. And also, to be honest, this was a passion project for me because this is my neighborhood. And I knew that if I didn't do this project, someone else, maybe not so qualified, was going to do this project. And then I was going to have to look at it. So, it's trade-offs. So these are my lessons learned. These are more pictures. You can't control the market. You can't control buyer demand. You can't control interest rates, and you can't control lead times for FF&E. Indecision will be the absolute death of your project. You need to make quick decisions to keep people moving. Being overly optimistic about your numbers will not do you any favors. It just won't. You should throw out the outliers because they're out. That's why they're outliers. Be extremely realistic about your timeline and err on the side of worst case scenario. When starting out, work in markets you're familiar with and you have support. I mean, that's a tip just in general for me. I like to start out in markets very softly before I take a deep dive. Don't hire people who are hard to work with. Honestly, it is stressful enough as it is. If you are afraid to bring something to your contractor's attention because you don't want them to lash out at you, they're not the right contractor for you. Fire them. You will absolutely make mistakes, and that's okay. We all do. Have an exit strategy. We talked about that already. Tap into you and grow in your network. Get comfortable using spreadsheets. Be available and on hand to answer about 1 million questions. If you don't have time, you will pay with money. And if you don't have money, you will pay with time. So that's super important. Be flexible and ready to value engineer your plan if you see yourself going into the red. You'll save yourself a ton of money by knowing your project in and out or hiring someone who does, like a trusted construction manager who can kind of manage the process for you. Don't fire your tradespeople unless you have someone at the ready to take their place, because 2 or 3 weeks waiting for somebody else, now you've lost your schedule. If you can't commit the time, considering being an equity partner to somebody else, investors out there are looking for equity partners left and right. It's possible that you can team up with someone else who's managing the process for you. And most importantly, you must know your numbers. You must know your numbers. If you don't know your numbers, then you are not doing yourself any favors, because you'll lose money at the other side. So here's all the times I wish I would have paid someone else. In 10 years, I've done a lot. And I kind of wish some of them are worse than others, but like sledgehammering up concrete was definitely down there on my list of, I hated doing that. So alas. So there it is. Hopefully everybody learned something.
That was so great, Alexandra. Thanks for sharing. Oh, before we forget and kind of start taking questions from folks,
Yeah.
can you share? I thought it was so cool to hear about your vision and kind of long-term goals with design and renovation work in the area.
Yeah, so I am my passion projects are mid-century moderns. I love mid-century moderns, and I live in the El Cerrito area, and there are lots of mid-century moderns that are kind of like original blank canvases for me. And I love, and that's one of the things I love about this area is you're buying from, because they were built in the 50s and the 60s, oftentimes they have not changed ownership yet because they're still relatively new. So you're getting something in its kind of original, unbastardized form. And those are the kind of projects that I'm like, that's why this project for me was like, I had to have it. Literally, I had to have it because it was like totally up my alley. And my philosophy is that in an architectural preservationist philosophy, I hate the word flip, to be honest, because it has such a nasty connotation. It's like, be cheap, like go with the cheapest materials, get the cheapest faucets, do the cheap things. And I don't believe in that, to be honest. There are ways to save money without, buying a $20 faucet. I mean, that's me personally. So having a really quality project that you feel really good about at the end of the day is super important to me. So that's kind of like when I see myself evolving to the next level, it's doing really, really quality builds that people are actually coming to me saying, when are you going to be doing the next one? Because I want to be on your waiting list. So I mean, in an ideal world, that would be the way that it is. So
So cool. So cool. Yeah. One thing too, one of my takeaways from all of this is I think this is why people kind of get so fascinated by real estate. In this one presentation, you see a photo of you using a sledgehammer, but it's like sledgehammer, Excel spreadsheet, design work, negotiating the purchase, like just so many things and so many facets of real estate that really just uses so many parts of your brain and physically too.
Yeah. I mean, look, that's the upper right corner. That's my new house vibes. I was so tired because I have a full-time day job. I mean, I have clients, I have end users that are, utilizing me for design and stuff. So I do a lot of this investing and all of this work on nights. I mean, look, some of these are dark. The photos are dark because I'm over there at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night. Again, introduce yourself to your neighbors. So they know that you're like, hey, we're renovating this house. Just so you know, we're going to be making noise and we're going to try to be really respectful. And if we're being too loud, please let us know. Here's my business card, So relationships are really, really important to this business. You can't do it on your own. So it's nice to have someone there to, kind of help you out, help you navigate. Don't reinvent the wheel. Someone's already done it before. So, rely on them for their experience. Yeah. Questions? Oh, questions. Everything's quiet.
Hi, Alexandra. It's Lily. Hi. I do have a question. Before I tell you ask my question, I will say I actually toured that property.
Did you?
Yes. And I think you did such a fabulous job. I remember walking through just the curb appeal through the foyer up to the living room. I think you did such a fabulous job with turning the home from what it was to something that was so attractive from the beginning to end, through the entire walk. I was very impressed with your design choices, and I really wished my client would have bought that home. And I was like, okay, if you don't want to buy it and I want to live in West Cerrito, I would buy this house. It was really, really well done. So kudos to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay. So now on to my question.
Okay.
as a designer with a focus in high return on investment, where do you have certain go-tos for your finished materials?
Yeah, so once you get kind of comfortable in this sphere, I actually do buy a lot online, and you start finding tips and tricks about where to go. Like Wayfair, All Modern, Paragold are all the same thing. They're all the same site, except here's a little tip. They all rebrand the same products depending on the market they're going to. You can find the same faucet in all 3 places with 3 different prices.
Interesting.
So Wayfair is going to be cheaper than All Modern because you're going to All Modern. Because, hopefully this is going to go on YouTube. Wayfair's going to find me. So you can find deals that way if you know where you're looking. The problem is that they actually rename the product, so you can't cut and paste one to the other. You just have to kind of know what products are going to be streamlined across all 3 platforms. So, but that being said, though, you don't always know what you're buying online. So, although the ship times are much quicker, you need to read the reviews and weed out whatever looks like they were paid reviews. But read the reviews. If someone is repeated, if there are reviews that constantly say this faucet broke the first time I use it, it's probably garbage. Read the reviews, and they do pay people to write reviews, so read them with a grain of salt. But if it's the same thing coming up over and over and over again, maybe don't buy the cheapest. I do use Amazon a little bit, but Amazon, again, there's a lot of knockoffs on Amazon. Just because something is listed as Delta, it doesn't actually mean it is Delta. So you have to be really careful about that. So
interesting. So it's important to not just look at the product, but also potentially who's supplying that product.
That's right. If it's coming direct from Delta, it's probably a Delta. They're not going to be selling knockoff under there. But if it's coming from a company that has really kind of weird reviews and they have products that aren't in line with plumbing supply, I would be a little bit cautious. So that's another thing. If you're ordering online and your timeline and your plumber depend on those products being what they're supposed to be, and then they A, don't arrive on time, or B, they install it and it breaks, then you don't have a backup. You have to find, and that's why a lot of people kind of run out to Home Depot and say, okay, well, I'll just go to a builder store and I'll buy something off the shelf. But they end up not being in the same finish color. And that's also really important, aesthetically speaking. Like, you don't want to mix chrome with black, with brass, with, brushed. It just looks like it was completely unintentional. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Of course. Anybody else?
I have a quick question. Hi, I'm Kaylee. Thank you, Alexandra, for your time. One question I had was kind of in the numbers. How do you determine if a house is actually worth the time? I think in your case study, you were kind of projecting to make 5% profit. Is that kind of what you're targeting, or curious?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I wanted this project as a passion project, like I said. So my numbers were much more modest, I would say. Most investors say if you're not making $15,000 a month, it's not a good investment. So if you're projecting a 12-month timeline, then you should be making approximately $15,000 in profit a month for the duration of your project. They will not touch it. They just won't. The numbers won't work. Which is why a lot of people look for off-market investments versus on-market investments, because they have more negotiating power to buy off-market. But if off-market was falling out of the trees, everybody would be doing it. Off-markets are incredibly hard to find. And so that's why having a network of people who are bringing you listings, so put the word out there that you're looking, that you have a little bit more leverage, because once it goes on market and you're stuck in a bidding war, then you're paying a certain amount over just based on the fact that everyone else wants it too, So that's kind of how I didn't go into it thinking I was going to make $300,000, and because that just wasn't where my head was at the time. But I do know a lot of investors, and I was one of 6 offers, which was surprising for a fixer, because I thought I was going to be up against 15 or 20 people, but I think that the margins were too narrow for the other developers to really want to say hey, this isn't worth it. It's not worth my time. It's not worth my guy's time. If I have another project that I'm going to make $400,000 off of it. I don't want my guys to be on this project. I want them to be over there, and they'll wait for that. So just being realistic about, you know, what are you doing it for? Are you doing it to make 20 grand? Then the numbers are a little bit more, you can move them, or they're malleable versus something that you want to make $500,000 on. So
That makes sense. Thank you.
yeah, of course, no problem.
Hey, Alexandra, it's Sam. Quick question for you. What's like a viable exit strategy?
Okay. Viable. Okay. So my exit strategy for Walnut Street was, we either take a loss, and we take a loss, but we have to be able to cover all of the expenses that we borrowed, the funds we borrowed from other people. I mean, I put a lot of my own money into it, but that was not the priority. The priority was making sure all of my investors, my equity partners, all the people who gave me money and said, hey, I trust you, do right by us, made sure that they got all the money back, and I lost money personally. It was my personal deal. I lost the money. The other exit strategy, and I hated the thought of it, was to, if that house was not moving, then I was going to move into it and sell my primary residence. So not that would really, that even the thought of that kind of makes me tear up a little bit. But that's the reality of this business, is if you don't have a solid exit strategy, renting it in the Bay Area would have maybe covered my expenses, but I would not have seen that money for a very long time. And renting in the Bay Area, for those who are not in the Bay Area, we have very, very strict rental laws, and that does not necessarily mean you will be able to get those tenants out when the market rebounds. So renting it was not an option, although everyone was like, oh, why don't you just rent? That's not a big deal. Rent for a year. It's not that easy here to do that. So the exit strategy was either take a loss, which is what we ended up doing, or move into it and sell my primary residence, because it was going to be more desirable to the market at the time. So yeah, it's you have to have a come to Jesus moment. Like, what is really, like, if this does not sell, and you know, they say in the Bay Area, everything sells, but at what price? You know, everything sells, but was someone going to be willing to pay for it? You know, so you got to think about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Anybody else?
If not, I had a question for you, and just in terms of if folks want to learn more about what you do, want to connect with you, what does that kind of look like as a potential next step if they want to work with you?
Yeah, so if you want to work with me, contact me via email, give me a call. Basically the way that I do my investor projects is I consult. So I have a consulting fee that I charge to kind of help you through the whole process. I do like my mood boards. I do those for my developers. Like, I kind of paint the whole picture for them, and then it depends on the level kind of they want, the touch point that they want. I don't do all the ordering. For my own project I did, but I typically hand a package off to my clients and say, here are all the fixtures, this is all the faucets, this is the space plan, this is all of the drawings, everything. And I hand that off to the contractor, and they kind of run with it mostly. So it's so setting you up kind of to push the ball forward. But so that's mostly how my process works. So it's selling, basically I'm able to give you the vision of what the space could look like. And we kind of run with that. And then, you know, I'm flexible depending on what the client's needs are too. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think we're any other last questions? Anyone else?
Yeah, guys, this is 10 years of knowledge here we're tapping into.
All right, I have one, Cliff.
Yes.
Hey, Yuchi.
Hey, what if so I'm a realtor here in East Bay too.
Okay.
What if I bring you a off-market property? Would you be interested in teaming up and kind of show me the ropes, and we'll do it together?
Yeah, we can talk about that. I do take on other people's projects too, so that's definitely something I would consider. And I'm looking. I don't have one currently, so I am looking. So that sounds interesting.
All right.
Yeah, email me.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's a cool one, Yuchi. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Alex, I have a question. This is Claire, and it is marvelous to see you, my friend. Is there one like biggest tip or pothole that you don't want others to fall into that you would give as advice?
Oh, That's very broad, Miss Claire.
I'm a very broad woman.
Yes, one advice overall, I'd say, in my lessons learned, I think that what I fell victim to was, I was overly optimistic about my numbers. I think that I should have erred on more of the side of caution. So, we all, when we're heading into this, we get really, really excited after we found the property, like found something that really gets our gears turning, that we're like, I have to buy this property. Like I have to, I am so excited about this project, but being overly optimistic about your numbers and not being realistic. I think Connie said, she was Renovation 101, right?
Mhm.
She said, you are, what did she say? She said, you are naive enough to start and stubborn enough to complete. And I think that that is so true. So don't be super naive going into it. Make sure that your numbers work. Because honestly, it could be the most beautiful and most desirable and most everything, but it's only worth what somebody is willing to pay for it. That's it. That's it. So it's all about the Benjamins.
I wish I could give you a mic that you could just, that was a mic.
I'll drop my imaginary mic. So that's kind of like, that's my biggest takeaway, is just literally know your numbers. And it doesn't matter how much you love a house. If the numbers don't work, then it's not a viable project. It's not, unless you want to move into it and sit on it for 2 years and make sweat equity. Oh, if you want to do the work yourself, there's one, sweat equity. Yeah, that's a conversation for a different day though.
Next week's topic, sweat
Yeah,
equity.
next topic, right, exactly. So, but I just want to thank all of you so much. I know it's late on a Wednesday, and I'm so happy that we had the turnout that we had, and I hope you all learned something, and that's a win in my book. If you can take one thing away from this presentation, then I feel like I did my job.
Oh yeah. Any last questions?
Yeah.
I know we're a little bit over time, but if anyone has
I have
questions.
one last question, Alexandra.
Yeah.
Since you do design on the side, if someone were to bring you on as a designer in their flip project, what should they budget for in terms of working with a designer to design the aesthetics of the home?
So that's a great question. It depends on the scope of work. It depends how many kitchens, how many bathrooms, how extensive the drawings are. If you're hiring an architect, if you're hiring an engineer, because those are going to be separate drawings. How long the duration of the project is. Are you going to want someone like me on site all the time doing project management, construction management, making sure that things like outlets are being installed where you tell them to be installed, because that, again, I don't want to get into the weeds, but those kinds of things will trip up your inspections. So if your outlets are not all installed where they're supposed to, and the inspector comes and they said, hey, there's an outlet that's supposed to be here on the drawings, and they didn't do it, then you're stuck with that. So it depends on the level, but I would say if it's just like a finished package, it could be on the 5,000 range. But if it's a full touch point basis during the duration of the project, I mean, it could cost 20. It depends. It really depends on the project. And those numbers might not even make sense for the project. But here's something else. Here's another big thing, another takeaway. If you are not available, your contractor calls you, you have another job, you don't get back to them until after 5 o'clock, you were just not available, then that question ends up being in the, out in the ether for another 24 hours. And that just costs you time. That costs you another day. That means the plumber left and they're not coming back for another week. You need to be on hand to answer questions almost immediately. And if it's not hey, text, hey, I'm in a meeting, what's the question? I can get you a quick response. This way, if that's the best way to keep things moving forward. If you're not available, then they're not gonna follow up a whole bunch of times. Hey, this is still an outstanding item. They're just gonna wait for you to come back, 3 days later. So that's, again, if you make quick decisions and you're able to move things very quickly. Also, I didn't realize this, but inspections used to be within 24 hours. Inspections now are a week out. So in anticipation of the inspection, you need to schedule way ahead of time, which means that you're scheduling an inspection technically when all your inspection items are not complete yet. So so if you're not getting the questions answered and your plumber can't finish the job and your electrician can't finish the job, then when the inspector comes in to do to inspect rough, then you're not ready. And they're like, well, you fail and you'll have to schedule one for another week. PG&E is another one that we're talking 6 months for PG&E. If you're moving your box, you're upgrading your system, anything like that, 6 months, maybe even longer. And if you miss the inspection appointment for PG&E, they're like, sorry, it's going to be another 6 months, you know? So be available, be available. Be available.
Love it. I love how you're just drilling all the critical things like the project management aspect, time is money, you lose a day. All of those examples were just so awesome here. And then also just know your numbers and all of it.
Know your numbers. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, I took you all over, but I really honed it in there. I really like focused on the everything. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. Follow me on Instagram. I share all kinds of stuff on Instagram too. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks so much.
Yay. Thank you.
Everyone.
everyone.
Thanks for all the words of
Good night.
wisdom and info that you
Appreciate your
shared.
time. Take care.
All right. Take care, everyone. Have a good one.
See you. Thanks for hosting, Cliff.
Yeah. Thank you, Cliff.
Yeah. Thanks. Good to
Take
see you.
care. All right, bye, everyone.
Bye.
No, it's not.